your host at Raising a Happy Camper here at Happy Camper Live, and I am super excited for my guest today. Jesse, I'd like you to introduce yourself. I think everybody gives just the best intros of themselves. I can't do it total justice here.
Okay. Yeah, sure. My name is Jesse Swede, and I'm originally from the United States. I'm from Pennsylvania, and I will probably not go back there again because my parents actually just moved down to Alabama. So if I go back, whenever I go back home, I'll probably go back to Alabama. And so I live in Spain now. I live in Seville, Spain. Before coming to Spain, I lived in South Korea. So I haven't lived in the United States since 2006. I've lived abroad in South Korea and now here. And I spent most of that time, all that time, really teaching English to all ages, from, little kids to what I do now is adults, working professionals, right? And a big thing that I am trying to build awareness to is to help parents, especially multicultural parents, to raise their kids, use the limitless nature that kids have, right? Young children, 2 years from birth until like 5 years old, their imaginations are limitless. They really are. So tap into that, because if you have multiple cultures in your family, that's a chance to raise them up with both languages. A lot of parents, a lot of people might think, that's obvious. Like, why would they do that? They already probably do that. No, they don't. A lot of parents, they might just defer to what's easier, the local language, right? Wherever we are now, because that's what the kids will do. That's where they're going to school. They're going to school with that language. Their whole lives are in that language. So it's kind of like, it can be a struggle, but it doesn't have to be a struggle to incorporate your native language, or a language that even, into raising a bilingual kid, because it pays off in dividends throughout their entire lives. More than just the language, much more than just the language, but in their character and who they are in their brain development, all of that. So a long answer for a short question.
No, but I think it's great because it's interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about their kids, and they were saying they had 3 kids. 2 of them spoke the other language of one of the parents, and the third one didn't. And I was like, well, why is that? And I think by the time they got to the third child, they were so much more acclimated into their new community, and English then became more of the language that they spoke in the house. Yeah. And I think looking back, that parent was like, I don't know why I stopped. We could have, they had this tremendous benefit flow to all of our children. And so it's really interesting to see that. I can see the challenges in terms of time and, kind of making it a priority. The whole point, Jesse, is making that a priority, choosing that this is going to be part of how we're going to raise our family. And we are going to make this something that's going to be part of our everyday life, because I assume that learning at that high level is to integrate it into all aspects of your life.
Yeah, so much, even like better test scores, even in subjects like math, more creative thinking, problem solving skills. But along with that, something I was just thinking about when you were talking, it's the cultural aspect, right? Because you're using different languages. So the kids are being brought up with 2 different cultures, because language is a window into a culture, right? So you learn a lot about a culture by how they use the language, how they call different things. A simple example that I go to in Korean, whereas in Korean, when they talk about like physical things, like little things like a pen, they say like my pen, your pen, my phone. But when they talk about bigger things like house, even like mother, wife, father, like family members, they use the pronoun we, our, right? They like our house. Like I'm going to our house. Like that's how it sounds weird to us, but to them that's the way they use it. And it goes back because Korean is such an old language, like over 5,000 years. So going all the way back, they used to be in very small communities. And I was explained this by my Korean friend. So the kids were playing or they were out and like talking or whatever. And if somebody got thirsty, for example, they wouldn't have to go back to their hut or their house. They would just go to the closest one because it's such a communal culture, right? So they would say, I'm going to our house for some water, and it just kind of like carried from there. Another interesting thing is when they say, I'm going to eat a meal, rice is such a central part of their meal that literally it translates, I'm going to eat rice, meaning I'm going to eat dinner. Did you have dinner yet? But they would say, did you have rice yet? Right. So it's little things like that that you would lose if you only spoke English, right, to your kids, right? You would lose that part of the culture.
Yeah, it's really interesting because thinking about this opportunity that so many parents have. There are a lot of parents that have moved out of the United States, and people have taken, different directions in their lives post-COVID and bringing new adventures. One of my podcasts we did recently is a family that's been traveling around the country in a school bus that, they're traveling and they have their 12-year-old son. And that was just really awesome. So I think that the opportunity of people to be in different countries, so you're English speaking in Korea or in Spain, where you are now, as a parent, taking your child, that's a really cool commitment to make, is to spend some amount of time really immersed in the culture, whether it's taking a year or if, even if it's a trip, if you can't pick up your whole life, but taking that opportunity to be in a specific country. So tell me about you in Korea and Spain, and how does that all like relate into your life? How did all that come about?
Oh, so much. It's completely life-changing. You're taken out of your comfort zone, it would be a big enough change if like my parents moving down to Alabama within the same country, you're taken away from the familiar, your everyday life, and taken into someplace else. Whereas like for me, going from that to Korea, where they don't even use the English alphabet. At least here you could like read like pasta, pizza, you can get some ideas.
You can eat.
Exactly. But and we have Spanish words that we use, casa and whatever. But like Korea, you like they do have English signs, but really like it's Korean signs. So like it's all squiggles and shapes and things like this at first. And that's why a lot of people experience culture shock, because the food's a lot different. The culture's a lot different. People look a lot different. And the language is a lot different. Everything is different. So when I went, I didn't really experience culture shock. I don't define myself as experiencing culture shock. I don't know what that means actually. So until I went back home for the first time, and that was almost like a reverse culture shock. It was weird. But so I looked at it like every day that I left my house was an adventure. And that's how I looked at it. Literally, I was like, every time I leave my house, it's an adventure. And it was too, going down to the local market, the outdoor market. Like, what am I going to buy? Hopefully this is lettuce. It looks like it, you know what I mean? And, but even like getting on the bus, am I going on the bus the right way? One time I didn't, out in the middle of nowhere. And, but it's an adventure. Going to the supermarket, am I getting on the right bus? And so it's all in the mindset, right? Like, how are you going to see this? Are you going to be paralyzed? Are you going to be nervous and paranoid out of fear? Or is it an adventure? And I looked at it every time I left the house, at least for that first year or so. It was an adventure and it was cool. And it was an opportunity. I was 26 at the time too. So like young enough to like experience an adventure, but old enough where like, I wasn't like 18. you know. So so it was a good time for that too. Yeah, so I mean, it's just a growing experience to live outside of your culture, to experience a different language, and the younger the better. I mean, if you can, do it. If you can't, then find like a local YMCA that has like a Spanish camp or something, or the
Mhm.
local library. Maybe they run some Spanish like immersive um classes. So like if you have children like 5 or younger, that's the time. More like 8 and 9, they can kind of like protest, like, oh, I don't understand anything. But like those younger years, like their minds are wide open, you know, and they're ready to play and they're ready to have fun and they're ready to participate.
Yeah, the nice thing about a lot of summer camps these days is they hire a lot of international staff from all different countries. So you do get the opportunity to have the kids exposed to these different cultures. And a lot of times they're there to learn English. But what's really nice is that the campers can learn their languages too. And there's, that's a really cool thing that kids can get out of summer camp. It's a very popular program, cultural exchange program. And it is an exchange. We should be learning from them and they should be learning from us. So we really see that at a lot of camps these days. It's getting more and more popular.
That's
So,
awesome. That's
yeah.
that's fantastic. Like summer camps, like English camps are big here, you know,
Mhm.
and in most non-native English speaking countries, right? It's kind of a privilege and stuff. And actually, my kids, when they were younger, I actually enrolled them in English camp just so
Mhm.
like they get in contact with English. So it's not just like, oh, daddy's language, like that's just the way daddy speaks, right? But it's like a real world thing. And it's something, yeah, it's a decision that you have to make as a parent.
Right.
You know, it's a
Mhm.
decision that has to make. And I'm glad you said that right in the beginning, because that's actually, you know, a lot of people say, where should my first step be? And that's it. Make a
Yeah.
decision for yourself that this is, you're raising bilingual kids. And guess what? Sometimes it is like, and I don't want to use the word sacrifice, but I did kind of sacrifice my Spanish. My Spanish is kind of rubbish from what it should be, because my job is all in English. Like all the times I'm communicating with people online, it's all in English. And with my kids, I keep everything all in English because their outside world is Spanish, right? So I have
Right.
very little practicing like improvement. I'd have to like, it'd have to be more of a priority. So I mean the onus is on me, but like it's a decision, and you take what comes with it, you know.
It's really interesting because there's so many aspects to this that I didn't really think about going into the conversation. But you do, like I said, you have your kids that are speaking English at home in Spain. And then you could have a kid here in the US that's from Spain, right? Spanish speaking family that's got a job in the US and they're trying to acclimate to being in the United States. So teaching them English, but also making sure that they remain multilingual. So they're making sure they speak that at home. And that we could use that application for any country. You talk about on your website 3 keys to bilingual kids. And I was wondering if we could kind of hit on those 3 keys. I'll say that again. 3 keys to rate. I'll do that one more time.
Yeah.
3 keys to raising bilingual kids. So what are those 3 kids? There I go. Wow. I'm going to do that one more time. Whoever's editing this is going to have fun. One more time. So you mentioned on your website, there are 3 keys to raising bilingual kids. And I would love to go over what those 3 keys are.
Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely. Yeah. I should probably, I've been trying to think of an easier way to say that because I get tongue tied on that too. I mean, you might have edited that out, but it's a tongue twister. 3 keys to raising bilingual kids. So the first one we kind of covered, right? It needs to be decision.
Right.
It needs to be, you need to make a decision. And I hesitate. Well, I want to give the caveat, I want to give the explanation that when you make a decision, that's not to say pressure. That's not to say like, we are speaking this language in the house and that's the way it is. Like, no, that's not what it means to like make a decision that, well, I'm raising bilingual kids. No, what it means is make a decision for you, right? Make a decision as a parent. What does that look like? Putting the TV on in your target language, right? Yeah, that's actually point two too as well. But that looks like using any way that you can to incorporate that language or that culture in the house, playing music in that language, playing that language as music, maybe putting like post-it notes on things on the lamp, lámpara, la puerta, la ventana, right? Things like that, labeling, just to make it aware to the adults, because the kids aren't going to read, but make it aware that it's a part of the family culture. Right? If it's your native language, like just to keep in mind that use that language. You know, well, one of the reasons that I'm doing this is because my grandmother's Mexican, and she was from Mexico, and she was a Spanish teacher. But my mother and her brother and sisters don't speak Spanish because she didn't have these skills. She, you know, got tired raising the kids, and you know, without the support. So my mother and her brothers and sister don't speak Spanish. And that as a result, I don't, and my sisters and my cousins, you know, it's like a ripple effect.
Right.
It's like dominoes, right? Whereas
quickly, whereas if I had picked it up and just made the commitment or the quote decision, look at all the generations that it would have been impacted from there.
Yeah, exactly. And the lives and what that would look like as a family culture, because it's more than just a language, like we hit on earlier. It's a culture. You're creating a family culture, and that's a beautiful thing, right? And again, it's not easy, but what easy thing feels good when you do it? You know what I mean? Like tic-tac-toe. I played tic-tac-toe with my daughter when she was little, you know, like big deal, I won. Okay, until I didn't, you know, and then that felt really good for her. It felt good for me to see her, but like, because it's challenging, right? So just keep that in mind, make a decision. And this is what would a parent of a bilingual kid do, you know? And another thing, like, have grace on yourself. It doesn't have to be like a strict rule that you're holding on to yourself, right? And have grace. Like, it's like, what would a parent who raises bilingual children do, and do that? You know, does that make sense?
I'm gonna pause there for a couple of points. So yeah, I think the fact that people box themselves into a commitment that's too much for them to make. So I really like what you're saying about, you make a decision, this is what you want, and you need to be flexible. Like, you may not even know what that means when you make that decision.
Yeah.
And you could say, I intend to speak this language in the house, or I'm going to do this, but it's not about beating yourself up if those things don't work out. Oh, I'm going to put Post-its everywhere, and you do it for 5 days and then you stop. But there are things, once you do make that commitment, you can check in on that as a priority. How am I doing with that? Is there anything else I can be doing? Once a month, you could just say, you know what, we're going to have dinner once a month and speak in a different language, and, you know, cook a meal in a different language. So there's a lot of fun things that you could do around it. So even if you said one fun thing a month, I don't know if you get as deep of a learning, you know, from that. But I think that people set sometimes their goals too high, and then they don't meet them, so they let it go. And that's where I think what I'm hearing from you is just come up with something, and then you can build on it. Because I bet, Jesse, that as soon as a parent starts bringing this into their lives, everybody's going to get excited. Like, my son's in Paris right now. He just started learning like French last semester. He's in university, and he took an accelerated French class. He took Spanish in high school, and he just texted me the other day. He's like, I just want to take the next level of French. And he doesn't need to take it because he just is in Paris now on a study abroad. And when he comes home, you know, and he's like, I fell in love with the language.
Yeah,
I just
that's
want to learn more. I just want, and that's what you want. So you could be at that place where your kid takes it from there. Like the burden is not going to always be on you.
no,
Your child is going to take this learning and go live their life with it. And
yeah,
you just be the root of it, you know?
that's it. That's it. And guess what? Maybe he, like you give him French lessons or whatever, and he realizes, you know what? I don't like French, but German, that sounds really cool. Or Japanese, like I'm really into Japanese. So you
Mhm.
never know where it goes from there. And you made a great point. Like whatever you do, it's kind of like losing weight. You could go on one of these extreme
Right.
diets and maybe it could work for a while, but sustainability is more important, including it. So I'll give you a perfect example. I'm actually learning sign language. So anyone who says like, I don't know another language, it's not, I only speak English. Okay, well, maybe you can learn together, have it be a family activity. So sign language, I didn't know sign language. I still don't, but we're learning together. How are we learning? Mostly on Instagram. Now we've advanced up to like some YouTube videos, but and we don't do it. My kids don't live with me full time. So whenever we're together, or we'll do like WhatsApp videos and I'll say, today's sign is this, like thank you. And but some days we'll forget. And it's that grace to say like, oh, what? And you made a really good point. It's not like a what do you call it? Binaural? No. By, what is it? Like one or the other, ones and zeros. Binary. It's not like binary. It's not like either you do it every day or you don't do it. And no, it's like, if you can, maybe you don't want to watch all your TV in French. Maybe you don't want to do that. What about one show?
Right.
What about one like Mickey Mouse episode a day, which is like 10 minutes? You know what I mean?
I have to give a little plug here for Happy Camper Life. So if we're talking about this from somebody coming from another country outside the US that wants their kids to learn English, we've been focusing on that. So we have all of these great activities. I have to plug it. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
because it's
go
so
for
relevant
it.
to this
Go for
conversation.
it.
We have all of these activities for kids: magic, sports, music, art, dance. I mean, you name it, anything that you could do at a summer camp with all these great counselors instructing the kids on how to do it. So it's really, and we also have this another section that's like read along. So you could read along in English. So you're learning, you're seeing them doing the activity, you're listening to it in English. Some of them we have translated for in Spanish right now. So you can also listen, in Spanish. But it's such a great way that kids get excited because not only are they watching, quote, a show, right? Here they're learning a magic trick. I did it badly, but there's a magic trick to this on our site about, they're learning how to do a trick or do a dance. And are you going to do it? Oh, that was so good. You've been watching Happy Camper Live. There you go.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
You would. That was beautiful, beautiful. So there you go. And so I think that opportunity to learn and have fun and, learn, be specific around a skill gets really exciting for a kid, so that they're not just necessarily watching, something they're not getting.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Real
Yeah, I'll need to get that website from you because for my kids,
Yeah.
I might, enroll one of these days. So that'd be cool. No, that's awesome. And
Well,
anything
we
that's
have
actually
a lot of free content for kids because we really want everybody to access it. So we do have a subscription, but there's so much content that you can get for free.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll check that out for sure with them because I do like you saw, I do magic, right? And like here's this ring. That's a magic ring. I love it because here's the thing.
Seriously, I've used the
So
example of magic, and I'm on a podcast with a magician.
I
I could have.
I can't take all the credit. The ring did a lot of the work. No. But no, that actually leads into the second key that we were talking about, which is make it enjoyable, make it relatable to them in their lives. So number one, make a decision for you. Number two, make it real, make it something that's fun for them. but also something that's relatable to them. You know, show their shows into, don't like study English from a book, especially at younger ages, right? Show Mickey Mouse, show Matt, if they like magic, try different things. My daughter loves drawing. She was a little artist since she was probably like 2 or 3. And we have this YouTube channel we watch and draw with. It's called Art Hub for Kids. We call, and you know, plug for them, Art Hub for Kids, and we call it pause the video, because they always say in this show, if we ever go too fast, you can always, and then he asks the kid, and she says, pause the video. Yeah. And so my daughter always just called it pause the video. And but she loved that. My son doesn't. So like we do other things,
Right.
you know, that he enjoys, that are English related. And it's just find something. That's the second thing, right? Make it relatable to them. They're the focus, and do it together. Like it's something cool, like our sign language that we're doing. Learn it together or practice it together, you know.
And what's the third key?
The third key is consistency.
Okay.
You know, consistency. That's just, it's stereotypical, but it's stereotypical because it's true. You know,
Right.
like we touched on before, if you skip a day, okay, cool. But keep what you can to keep it every day. But if not, continue doing it, even if it's not every day. Like I said, like we don't do sign language every day, but we do it, you know, every week at least. Right? Whenever we remember. If we haven't done it for a few days, then I'll send a WhatsApp video. I'll look up a quick YouTube, Instagram, and then you never know what it will turn into. Like you were saying earlier, because we started out with just some Instagram videos, then moved up to YouTube, and then the person that I follow on Instagram, I sent her a message the other day. And I'm like, do you do any courses? Because like, and then like, I'm taking myself to the next level. Maybe your kids will take it to the next level, right? And she's like, and this was cool. She's like, no, I don't, but I was thinking about starting. So it's good to see that there's actually at least one person who's interested. I'm like, dude, there would be a lot of people interested, because she has a lot of followers too. And
well,
so you never know what it would turn into.
Yeah, for sure. We do something called Happy Camper Hangouts, and we do a lot of work with the kids in the foster care system. And one of our upcoming hangouts is for the kids to learn sign language, and we're going to learn to sign some songs. And so we thought that would be a really fun way for the kids to learn. And so, yeah, I agree. There's a lot of expression and other, you know, beautiful things to get out of learning. And really any language, right? As you said, any language has its own culture around it and own forms of expression. And there's a lot of meaningful connections to make, you know, with the language itself and the people that speak it. So that's a nice way that we can bring this world together a little bit, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And like, imagine going to a playground where there are, you know, Spanish speakers, I guess, and they're playing, and your child goes and plays with them and notices they're speaking Spanish, and he or she talks to them in their language, right? In the foreign language. That feels so cool, you know? Like, that's so cool. And it, you know, depending on your level of commitment, depending on your level of how much, maybe you don't speak Spanish and it's only their thing, it'll take a little longer. But don't put pressure. Pressure kills, you know, like desire. Pressure kills the interest in children, right? So keep it fun.
We don't want to do that.
Yeah.
When my kids were little, now I'm much older, my kids are in their late 20s. My son's. Wow. So we had these tapes. I think this was when my daughter was little. And they were these language tapes, and you rotated each tape. So there was like a German, French, Italian, I don't know, whatever the different, there were about 10 of them. And every day I would play a different tape. And these are the old
Mm,
days. So these are like
that's
cassette
awesome.
tapes. Okay. I sound
Yeah.
really old. But we would play these tapes. I think they were cassette tapes. And they were like, these are really good because your kids will be able to like pick up the different languages.
Yeah.
And it was always really easy for my kids to pick up languages because they listened to so many when they were little. So I'm
That's
going to
so
throw
cool.
that in. I have no scientific like evidence to support what I'm saying right now, but
I do.
I'm just, oh, good. So you can add it in. So as a parent, I did that for an entire year. Every single morning, I played a different language for my child. One is a musician now. And so I think the brain and music and
Awesome.
all of that kind
Awesome.
of brought that together. And the other one just had a very easy time picking up languages, which I don't necessarily sure would have been her thing. So tell me the science behind it.
Yeah. So how old were they?
They were newborns. I played it
Oh,
when they
yes.
were born, and every
Yes.
day till they were like a year old. However long they said to play it, maybe 18 months.
Yeah, that's the younger the better. Like newborns, that's the perfect time. Like less under 6 months, that's
Mhm.
beautiful because it really affects their pronunciation. Because you know, we're just an open funnel essentially, which goes into a, we can get into a diatribe of how we communicate as far as like aggressive, loving, what are we criticizing, what are we putting in that funnel, right? But also language. And that's the perfect time because they don't know English at that point. They don't know whatever
Right.
language, right? So they're just like absorbing everything. So like that Italian pronunciation, that German pronunciation, that Spanish pronunciation, that Russian pronunciation, it's all like forming inside their brain. If you picture the
Right.
brain like gelatin, and like it's liquid jello, but if you pour it in like a dish that looks like a bird, it'll look like a bird. If you put it in a dish that looks like a flower, it'll look like a flower. And that's kind of what you're doing by
Right.
introducing them with other languages and other sounds. And that's so
Right.
amazing. That doesn't surprise me at all that the one's a musician and that the other one, languages come so easy to them.
Yeah. So I think there are a lot of ways. I think these tapes probably don't exist out in the world as a package anymore, but certainly
It's called
we can.
YouTube now.
I know exactly. Like it's really easy to do that and just rotate the different tapes. And I don't really remember what the content was, but it was really super cool. I'm also a big fan of all of the baby Einstein tapes with the music and Mozart and like
Yeah.
there's just something about all of that when your kids are when they're babies that really supports their mind, and as they develop later on, things just become easier to them as a result
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've got our three keys to raising bilingual kids. I said the tongue twister, then I got stuck on the tongue word. So there you go. But I think this is just an awesome conversation. And, I love your passion and your commitment for this topic. You are teaching as that's your livelihood, but there's a mission behind it. And I think that's what's really cool. And that's why I reached out. And they're not hearing a lot of these conversations. And I think this is like gold for parents. Like this has been
Awesome.
great. Really, really
Yeah.
great.
Thank you for the opportunity. And it's whenever I get to talk about it, that's why, like in the beginning or maybe before we went live on the air, but like I love having conversations. I love conversations and platforms where I can get this out because the more I talk about it, the more it fires me up too. And the more it just reminds me like it is really cool because if you live your life, like you kind of forget how special like your special things are, and we all have those, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's language or whether it's like somebody's patience or whether somebody's very organized or whatever your strengths are, like we kind of don't see our own strengths because they're just ours. It's just what we call life.
Right. Right.
And I think it's really important to think sometimes about what are the things you're really good at. Cooking. Oh no, I'm not, I just cook. I just put things together, but it tastes really awesome. Appreciate that about yourself. You know what I mean? Like, we kind of take our own gifts and our own skills and our own, what Ed Milet calls our own genius. We take it for granted. And I think like platforms like this help me become self-aware that, like, this is pretty cool. So I just want to take that opportunity to share with your listeners too, to take a minute, and whenever you listen to this, take a minute and think about where you really, we're kind of told, again, with the conditioning, like, don't brag, no, lift yourself up, right? Look at what you're good at and be grateful for it. And just take that moment and appreciate your own strengths and your own gifts.
Yeah. Well, hopefully people will be working to add, a gift to their children. And as a result of this conversation, I'm inspired, and I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's late where you are, but as you say in Spain, you're just kind of getting ready to get the party started right now. So
maybe for younger folk.
Right, exactly. So Jesse Sweet, thank you for being here. Anything you want people to know? How do they find you? Tell them.
Yeah, so thank you. You can find me on Instagram. That's probably the most common thing. I guess Jesse_Swede. I do TikToks too. Jesse Swede. And other than that, where did we connect? On Facebook? No. Yeah, find me on there, and then you'll find my link tree and whatever. But come in the DMs and say hi too.
Yeah, well, you have some parent support groups, and you have a lot of different things going on. So if you're a parent and this is of interest to you, not only do you do lessons, but you have Facebook groups and other things on your website. You have a lot of really great resources. And as I said, at Happy Camper Live, we offer great support for people trying to learn English and immerse their kids into the American culture by learning about summer camps, which is like an iconic part of our culture, and most kids are fortunate to experience it now with Happy Camper Live. Every kid gets to experience. So, cool. Yeah, so lots of synergy here. I feel like we could talk forever, so maybe we'll get back together and have another conversation as we continue to reach out into the space and see what we can do to help kids to become bilingual kids.
Yeah, awesome. I'd love to. I really had a good time here.
Thank you.
Take a moment to shine on Happy Camper Life. We're loving, living, and learning online on Happy Camper